Good evening, everyone. I'm Mary Krasner, and here we are living in a time of tremendous upheaval. We know some of the effects that bill will have on our state, some of the changes they have already made at the Department of Education and Health and Human Services, but we don't know a lot about how the state will manage these changes, especially for people with IDD. New York City Fair will make every effort to share anything we learn as it happens. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that there were many questions submitted about topics that we won't be able to address tonight, some very specific individual advocacy problems, and many concerns about housing availability, getting eligibility, self-direction, and future planning. But tonight we want to focus specifically on some new advocacy initiatives within OPWDD. What are they? How can they help? What have they learned so far? And what plans are there for the future? We have three presenters to explain these. Excuse me. They are Commissioner Willow Baer, who prior to stepping up as commissioner was Executive Deputy Commissioner, overseeing the agency's operational management, which included planning, fiscal planning and oversight, and policy development. Previously, she was twice assistant counsel to Governor Kathy Hochul, overseeing legal priorities and legislation across human services and mental hygiene. Before that, she served as general counsel to OPWDD, general counsel and deputy commissioner for the Office of Children and Family Services, and as counsel to the Justice Center. Lisa Salamy is the new director of advocacy at OPWDD. An initiative started last February. She began in this field as a DSP for children with disabilities. Prior to coming to OPWDD, Lisa served as the lead Ombuds with the Justice Center for the individuals receiving services at two OPWDD developmental centers, Sunmount and Valley Ridge. In her new role, she oversees the Advocacy and Peer Support Unit, which includes a team of peer specialists with lived experience to inform and improve services for people with disabilities. She also acts as a key liaison to the Independent Ombuds program, which supports individuals navigating OPWDD services and works to protect their rights. This Ombuds program has introduced its very own acronym that you may now be seeing, IDDO. And our third presenter, Flor Ramirez, is the supervising attorney for this Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Ombuds program as part of the Community Service Society of New York. She has worked there in many capacities. Prior to this, Flor was associate supervising attorney of Community Health Access to the Addiction and Mental Health Care Project. Before returning to CSS, Flor worked as a domestic violence staff attorney for the legal project in Albany. We've asked everyone to give us a short presentation based on the questions submitted during registration. There are many more questions that have come in since, and some are to follow up and to get some clarity on what they have said. Please put any questions you have about what you hear in the chat, which the chat monitor will endeavor to answer or send over to be asked of the presenters. So first, why don't we hear from Lisa Salamy as the new Director of Advocacy for an overview?
Well, thank you for having me here tonight. Mary, I know you went over my background a bit. I think just a couple things I wanted to add is being in this field. I have over 12 years of experience in the field of advocacy. This job and this profession is very professional to me, but very personal as well. I have lived experience. I'm a daughter of someone with a developmental disability, and I understood at a very young age what it's like to navigate the system, in which I helped my mom obtain services that she needed as I was growing up. So I always thank you for your advocacy, and thank you for having me here tonight. So I'm going to go over a bit about the Office of Advocacy and the work that we do here. I do want to mention we have two advocates with us tonight, BJ and Christopher, in which they will introduce themselves shortly. So they're two of the peer specialists in our Advocacy and Peer Support Unit. So I will go started. So our vision, just like others at OPWDD, our goal and our team is within OPWDD. And our goal, just as the rest of the agency, is to really ensure that people with developmental disabilities and their families and loved ones are heard, respected, and included in our decisions, which we will talk a bit more about shortly and how we do that. Our office, we focus on several things, that lived experience. So as I mentioned, I'll talk a bit more shortly, and BJ and Christopher will talk about really integrating that peer perspective in our policy and development at our agency, self-advocacy, systems change, and collaboration with internal departments and external agencies. Some of you may already have heard me talk. I say this quite often. With all my years of advocacy, I've learned two things. There's advocacy and there's effective advocacy. And in my experience, when change happens, it's that effective advocacy. When we start collaborating, and it's so important in the Office of Advocacy, we are building our network, our advocates are building their network, and we really want to work together to facilitate change. Families are key partners in our work. We hear directly from families such as this. Since I've been in my role since February, I've had the opportunity to meet with several groups. And again, I thank you for this invitation and having us here tonight. And our peer specialists will talk more about what they do specifically. I don't want to get into it too much shortly. And our peer specialists, although they provide that peer support, they provide peer support to family members as well. And again, they'll talk about that in a bit. So when we're looking at the structure of the Office of Advocacy, there are two key elements. We are the point place for two ombudsman programs, which I will briefly talk about shortly. I know I don't have too much time, and also the Advocacy and Peer Support Unit. Okay, so when we're talking about the two ombudsman programs, so we are a point place for the independent ombudsman program and also the ITO ombudsman. So as Mary mentioned earlier, in my prior role, I served as a lead ombudsman with the New York State Justice Center for the Protection of People with Special Needs, and I advocated on behalf and beside people that were receiving services at OPWDD's two developmental centers, which are Sunmount and Valley Ridge. So we are a point place for both ombudsman programs. And Flor, I won't get into what you do because I know you'll talk about that shortly. So really what my job is to be a point of contact for those ombuds programs and really maintain the open communication between their program and our agency. So if there's anything that they need, they will reach out. If there's any systemic issues that they're seeing, they will reach out, but mainly be that point of contact. If there's some sort of contact they need with the ombudsman program, let's say the independent ombudsman program has someone who just really needs to talk to someone at OPWDD, I will help and triage that case out. So really keeping those lines of communication open, and information sharing when it's appropriate. So really ensuring that relevant agency staff are informed of issues that are raised by the ombudsman teams and advocating for change. And I do want to mention with the ombudsman program, the independent ombudsman program exists because of people like yourself that advocated for a really independent party providing a safe place so you can receive advocacy services. So that way you can share your concerns and any complaints that you may experience. My role is to not direct the work of both ombudsman programs, but really to ensure that the concerns that they're bringing forward are connected to the right people within the agency. And as I mentioned before, that collaboration is so important because that's when change can happen, that effective advocacy. And lastly, as I kind of mentioned already, that collaboration. So help identify trends and patterns for leadership and facilitate that information sharing, because the more that we know, the more that we can advocate for change. And this is why it's really important that for our advocates and our team to meet with family members, meet with the people that we are supporting, to really hear if there's any concerns that you may have, what those concerns are, and even some good things that you experience at our agency that really helps us get a better sense of where we can improve as well. So as I mentioned, Christopher and BJ are going to talk a little bit more about the unit. And Commissioner, feel free to jump in on this. So our Commissioner, she has a huge dedication to making sure that people with that lived experience are at our executive leadership level. So prior to that, I got on board 6 advocates were hired, and they all have lived experience, and we're going to talk a bit more about that shortly. Currently, we have 6 advocates, 1 individual and family advocate, and then 5 peer specialists. This team is a core part of the Office of Advocacy. I directly supervise this unit. These are employees with people with disabilities who use their own lived experience as well as their professional advocacy skills to support others. Lived experience plays an important role in helping people feel heard, empowered, and supported. So although they provide that peer support, they also provide support to family members as well. A lot of our advocates, if they're working on a case, they may provide feedback such as, I went through something similar, and this is what helped me. And they really help people, empower them to enhance their self-advocacy skills. So if there's somebody, I know Christopher BJ, hopefully I'm not taking too much away from you, but if they get a case and there's somebody who may have some concerns about their treatment plan or the behavior support plan or life plan, they could connect with one of our advocates, and they're able to help them enhance those self-advocacy skills and help empower them to express any concerns that they have. So these are our peer specialists. Some of these names may be familiar to you. We have Chester Finn, who's our individual and family advocate. BJ, who's with us tonight, he's our peer specialist too. I just want to mention that Chester and BJ have a unique role as well. They serve as a peer mentor to our other advocates, given that they have extensive experience in the field of advocacy and peer support. We have Marilyn, Alfie, Christopher, and Josh. And I do also want to mention, although they're physically located at these areas, they cover the entire state. So when we're looking at the role of the peer specialist, there's 3 key concepts that we focus on. Advocate, they help people improve their quality of life by educating them on their rights, right? I always say knowledge is power. The more that people know what their rights are, the more they can advocate for themselves, and really building those self-advocacy skills for them. And educate, they train staff and other self-advocates, which Christopher and BJ will talk about some of those projects that they worked on internally and externally, and improve. So some of our advocates sit on our agency policy meetings and procedures, and they provide feedback on their peer perspective, which we have found to bring tremendous value to our agency. And then Christopher and BJ, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. That was very good. Saves me a lot of time. Good
You're welcome,
see,
BJ.
Good to see everybody. Glad to be back with the New York City Fair Group. Many of you know who I am by my years of work. It is an honor to be here speaking with you tonight about the Office of Peer Support, and as a peer specialist tool. As Lisa said, my role is to mentor, to assist, and to guide with my years of experience as an advocate. And I am very happy that I get a seat at the table of overall leadership of OPWDD. Thank you, Willow, for that. We talked to many departments about their different policies. One of the policies we are looking at is something that I've always wanted to change. I've wanted to get rid of the word outing, for example, and call it a community activity. As a matter of fact, the last time we looked at the policy, I caught in one part of the policy, it said community activity. So I said to Lisa, why can't we call it out and just say if they're going to use it, they're going to use it one place, they should use it everywhere. Now, yes, we know 10 years from now, people will want something different than activity, but my job and the job of the other peer specialists is to focus on now and the immediate needs. And as all of you know, my job when I advocate is to advocate for everyone, not only individuals who receive support from OPWDD, but families as well. And me, with my years of experience, I've received many calls about cases or emails because people know who I am. And, you know, it's great to be a part of this unit because I get to pass along my years of knowledge and what I know about the system to new and upcoming advocates. And whenever I speak about the unit, I refer to the unit as my extended family in advocacy. And it's good to have, for me to have that peer support and to guide the way the system is going to look in the future as it relates to advocacy. I will let my colleague Christopher take the rest of it because I don't want to take up all the air. So go ahead, Christopher.
Hello, folks. I'm Christopher Bolster, Peer Specialist with OPWDD. My physical office is located in the metro region, which is downstate, physically in Manhattan. I would like to thank New York City Fairs for having myself and my colleagues on tonight. And to BJ, I just want to recognize you for the stalwart that you are with disability rights and for being such an amazing mentor to me. I'm one of the more junior advocates in the unit. So with that comes a lot of responsibility, but a lot of learning. But I find that learning as I'm doing is really what's helped me hone in on my advocacy skills. There are a few things that I would say really define what a peer specialist is. What primarily how the fact that we have the ability to and are expected to share our lived experiences with those we are supporting to help encourage them, lift them up, and support them. This can look very different. Some peer specialists choose to share more than less. Then there's folks like me who more so assess the situation and tend to share what's needed for the most impact. As BJ and Lisa said, we do have our cases that of individuals we support and work with, and that the great thing about OPWDD and our unit of advocacy and peer supports is that we have statewide jurisdiction, both internally and externally. I would just want to preface that our unit supports individuals and families, but that I would say what drew me to this was I've always felt like advocacy was the core of who I am from a young age, having to advocate for myself as well as family and others. Just bear with me 1 second, folks. Some things, some tasks in the a couple of things that come to mind that really show the power and impact of our unit and us peer specialists is one, being able to speak to folks like you all today, and two, just having the just the respect and acknowledgement that we get internally and the value of our lived experience, and just being able to work on projects and other tasks that have a greater impact on many as opposed to the typical peer specialist position that is where you work with an individual or a group, but this role within OPWDD is direct advocacy, training, and policy work. I'll turn it over now.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Christopher.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you.
Christopher. And one thing I just wanted to add on that collaboration, something that the unit is working on, our advocates do a lot of internal presentations and external. Right, Christopher, we've had
Yes.
many presentations lately with other state agencies. I know that was one of the questions, reaching out. Christopher, do you want to talk about briefly the couple presentations you've done?
That'd be great.
Perfect.
There's a few that come to mind. One was a panel with the New York State Department of Health, where Lisa, BJ, and I had the honor and privilege of sharing our lived experiences and counseling the Department of Health on how to make their events more inclusive, especially for those with disabilities in relation to their Bring Your Child to Work day they have annually. Another event was, again, with me, Lisa, and BJ, and that was for the New York State Library Association, where we were on a panel sharing lived experience and knowledge on accessibility, how to make libraries more accessible. And with that, I recommended to have the presentation recorded and available after the presentation, and they opted to do that. And I would also add, I think I'll leave it with those two. Those are two solid ones.
Perfect. Thank you so much,
Great.
Christopher.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like now to introduce Flor Ramirez from the Ombuds program to talk to us about how that functions.
So the first thing is I wanted to remind everyone we have the heart of our program is the helpline, right? And so we are open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and we're very, very big on live answer. If you try to call us, we want to answer the phone. And so the first thing someone does is you either contact us via the helpline or the web form. The staff that picks up the phone or receives that call back identify the problem or need that you have. We call it needs at CSS. The problem or need that you have is either within our scope, but if it's out of scope, we make sure that you have a good resource or referral, right? And so a good example of that is someone trying to access CDPAP. That is unfortunately out of scope for us, but we try to give them a referral or information to somewhere else where they can get that type of information, and if appropriate, send them to ICANN, which is another sister program of ours. Another one is the people needing help with their home district, their school districts. That's also out of scope for us. And so we try to make sure that we could connect them with, for example, one of our partners if they're downstate, like include NYC or NILPI. If the problem is within our scope, we open a case, and that case is assigned to an IDDO case handler for individualized assistance. And I think some of you have already had experience with this process. So the case handler educates, advocates, or mediates on your behalf. And that can look very differently depending on your situation. The problem is either resolved, yay, that's great, or it is unresolved and a little bit more complex, and we can, where appropriate and where the person requests, refer that caller for legal help, and NILP provides us, which New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, which is our specialist agency, provides a list of legal referrals where that is appropriate. And sometimes we say, you know what, I want to contact OPWDD and escalate this and get some help from the advocacy office. And I think that's where it's really important to note that Lisa is sort of like my bridge there, my liaison. We work together so that I can better understand how systems work there and how we can advocate on behalf of our the participant. So the next thing that we wanted to do, it's now been 8.5 months or about 9 months since we launched. And we wanted to share some information of what we have seen so far. So from December 2024 to August 2025, we've handled 881 calls on the live answer helpline. So 881 calls in. We have opened a total of 827 cases. Not every call becomes a case for many reasons. Sometimes a person is calling again. We had Bernard Carabello visit us last Wednesday, and he called our helpline twice. And it was just to say thank you, but if you call, it's gonna count towards the number of calls. And we did not open a case for him because he didn't have a need at the moment. There's other ways that you can contact us. So I said that you can call our helpline, you can do the web form, which we actually really like, and you can also email us. And so when you use those other two forms, that becomes a callback in our system. So if you do the form or email us, that becomes a callback. So we responded to 603 callbacks, which resulted in 385 cases. And I just want to know that a portion of those callbacks, the person didn't, it was either outreach presentation request, the issue was completely out of scope, or the caller, declined assistance. So not all of them became cases. We provided services in 50 out of 62 counties in New York, and all the DRO regions, and the most comments were DDRO region 3, 4, and 5. So, Westchester, New York City, Westchester, and Long Island. I want to also mention that all the data is reported to OPWDD. All the data that we report to OPWDD is aggregated. So I'm not going to share confidential information to them unless you sign a consent, and we need to for a very specific reason, where, for example, if I want to escalate something to them and flag it to them for help. Anyone who contacts IDDO may choose to remain anonymous, and that sometimes happens. Someone wants some specific information, clarification on an ADM, wants to know, has a question about the work we do, etc., and they say, you know what, I don't want to share my name, and that's totally okay. We still sort of like log that information, especially if we're sharing information with them, so that we have a record of that. At minimum, staff must record the following information. So the need or the problem that you call us about, the service or what we do for you, how do we help you address an issue or problem, and the zip code, because we want to know where you're calling us from the state. Other information that may be collected but is not required is demographic data, health insurance type, what CCO, because we often report on that. We want to see trends around the CCOs, fiscal intermediary if applicable, and housing type and provider. So we, again, report to OPWDD summary of findings and not individual data. Other things that we report, and by the way, we do it quarterly and on an annual basis. So other things we report is the helpline live answer rate, the helpline post-survey results, the types of needs and services, caller demographics, and region served. So between December 2024 and August 2025, our top need, 36% of all our needs was access to care. And what that means is that people are already enrolled with OPWDD, but they need help accessing those services. And it could be that they got OPWDD initial eligibility and they need to help exploring FSS. It could be that they're already enrolled in the waiver and need some help accessing those types of services, for example. The second top need is eligibility. This is where someone is trying to obtain OPWDD eligibility, either initial or waiver. And we help them with the initial process and explain to them and educate them and make sure that they're preserving their rights where applicable, right? And we also help them in the waiver side when we things such as like requesting the packet from the CCO, looking at the justification letter, did the in-process life plan had all the information that it needed to have. So we provide that type of services. So that's why when you have a case with us, it might take a little bit for us to meet your needs because it sometimes takes time. The third need is quality of care. So the person is receiving care, so enrolled in OPWDD, or reports concerns about conditions, reliability, or safety of the care being delivered. So this can look, where something needs to be reported to the Justice Center, for example, or someone needs information on how to access some records, or another thing that we report on is person-centered care. Are you not being heard by your care manager? Is your care manager being unresponsive to you? And things of that sort. And the other thing is social, the next need is social determinants of health. The person is seeking assistance with an issue that impacts their health or well-being, but is partially outside of IDDO's program scope. So housing, not certified, being food insecure, immigration issues with their loved ones, for example, we try to give them referrals. Another thing, and the last one is understanding systems, where the person is asking help understanding OPWDD systems, services, and supports, or health insurance, but does not require further assistance. So the next thing is the service. So you have a need, you come with me, you tell me I have a problem, I need help, Flor. And then we say, okay, let me see what types of services we can provide. Our top service is information, because a big part of the ombudsman and the statute says is we educate people on how systems work. This is a very confusing system, it's understandably so, and so we provide that. But we also provide advocacy, that's the second need. So reaching out to a third party, reaching out to a CCO, reaching out to a provider agency, reaching out to an FI and say, hey, what's going on? We're trying to help this person. Like I said, information, we sometimes complain. Sometimes I contact Lisa and I say, hey, this person wants to share this experience. And then advising people on, again, that part of the statute that says that we help people preserve their rights. So most of our services categorized as information. Like I said, it could also mean researching policy questions. We're very deep on those ADMs, referring to service providers, government agency, legal service organization, helping recipients understand letters, notices, or other documents. So this is an example that we just recently had. IDDO advocates with OPWDD participants and their families to preserve their rights. So a client came to us and he was trying to get, start living on their own. And their FI was refusing to submit their housing subsidy application. And they were concerned. The FI, this person cannot live on their own. And they were concerned about their safety. And IDDO educated the FI on their role in the housing subsidy process per the ADM guidance. So reminding them that it's the DDRO's role to determine whether an individual has the appropriate supports and services to be eligible for the subsidy, and that their refusal to submit the application was interfering with their client's right to dispute resolution with DDRO, should their supports be found inadequate. And so the FI expressed understanding, acknowledging of their role to assist individuals, and they agreed to work with the individual to submit their housing subsidy application. The other thing that I wanted to share with you guys is another big thing for us, and CSS is known for this, is we do customer service it's a big deal for us. And so at the end of a helpline call, we have a post-call survey. And so we asked 3 questions. Was it the first time calling IDDO? Did you feel that you were treated with courtesy and respect? And do you understand the next steps to resolve your issue or question? And so far, we are at a 4.6. And 92% on understand next steps. But you know what? These are difficult situations, so I'm okay with that. And lastly, in the interest of time, I want to tell you that our website is live, although I see people sharing it, so I guess you know already, kind of. But I want to give all the credit to Rachel Schumann, who's my outreach and training manager and has been working incredibly hard for this. And so if you have feedback on the website, they can submit a form, right, Rachel?
Yeah, so you can provide feedback on the website through our contact form. Thank you, Jim Karp, for sharing that. The link to the form in the chat. We can share that again, and we can also share our slides. But just to talk about the website, we're hoping that, some of that education piece, can come from the website. So someone just asked, what's a CCO? So on the website, um, we have a page that explains what are care coordination organizations. And we also are really thankful that the peer specialists, including BJ and Chris and others, were able to review the website before launch and give us really valuable feedback that we were able to incorporate. So we also have a read aloud feature on the website that we were able to, make make them read the page a little bit more slowly, where we had a couple folks who used screen readers test the site. So it's still a work in progress. It certainly, I'm sure has little things here and there that need to be fixed, but overall we're really proud of the product. Oh, sorry, my video was off because I was trying to wrangle my cats. But but yeah, we're really happy with the design of the site, and we'll continue to add articles because, I know knowledge can't fix everything, but knowledge is power, and especially making things in language that is, easily accessible to, people, no matter if you have IDD or not, is beneficial. So thank you.
Thank you, guys, very, very much. Now I'm going to ask the commissioner, but I want to warn everybody that we do have some follow-up questions to go a little further because we got some inquiries. But I'll get you off the hot seat for a minute. And Commissioner, if you want to say something.
Sure. Hi, Mary. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. And I'm used to being in the hot seat, so I will take over for a moment. Although I don't have much to say, my team certainly did a perfect job of describing the new advocacy unit. And thank you to our friends at CSS for joining to talk about the Ombuds program, which we're really excited to partner with. I want to highlight because I've seen some back and forth about the role of the Ombudsman as being independent, which is certainly how it is created and how it operates. All of that coordination that Flor spoke of and Lisa spoke of is really just that. It's the Ombudsman reaching out to us when there's some facilitation needed between the care coordination organizations, our regional field office, understanding maybe an ADM or something. We don't tell them what to say. In fact, sometimes we don't necessarily agree with the outcome of a case through the Ombudsman, but that is exactly what advocacy is there for. And what I love about the program. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that they're not like reporting to me, although they do provide a great deal or will be providing a great deal of data. Flor talked about collecting a lot of information about the phone calls that are received and the web forms that are received. We, at the end of this calendar year, will receive our first sort of 1 year of data from them, and that will be shared out publicly, shared with the governor and the legislature. I know there's some questions about that as well. Certainly nothing to hide. All the work that they do is helping us do better and be better, and that's what they're there for. So I think it's important that everyone has access to all of that reporting when they complete their first year and report out to us. So everything else was really said. I was trying to fill in some of the blanks there. I'm sure that I missed some, but I am just thrilled to be here. As Lisa sort of laid out, since I stepped into the role of the commissioner, it has been so important to me to build space for people with lived experience, including family members of people with developmental disabilities, to really be at the table and have a voice for all of our policy making. If the system doesn't work for you all, then it doesn't work, and we need to know that in order to do our job. So I'm excited to be here, and I understand, Mary, there were some additional questions, so I'll let you.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Lisa if that's okay. I was wondering, in terms of the peer specialists, which seem pretty clear, what role there is for which I believe are probably the greater majority of people who cannot be a peer specialist, and their families are their advocates. Is there anybody in your system there who families reach out to or speak to or can speak for families? In a general way, I understand that the Ombuds is very specific about very specific problems people have. But in general, how do you hear from families?
So that's a really good question. The Office of Advocacy, we're here as a resource for everybody served by OPWDD and their families. We welcome the input, the feedback, and concerns from anyone. So if a call comes our way, we're not taking it. At times, we may triage a case out. We're working on a referral process between the Ombuds program and the peer specialist team. And I think, Flor, you briefly touched on it, to really enhance the advocacy for everybody. So if the Ombuds program, they're getting a call and they feel somebody could just benefit from peer support, whether that's a family member or an individual who's trying to navigate the delivery service system, they're gonna send over a referral. And then BJ, given you in the role, and Christopher, do you wanna talk a little bit about how you help even family members and the calls you get?
How do they reach? Just first of all, how do they reach you? Is there phone?
Yeah. So there's two ways. You could contact the OPWDD info line and ask to speak to a peer specialist within the Office of Advocacy. And then I put in the chat, Mary, our advocacy inbox. So we ask that folks, if you don't have a direct contact for a peer specialist, to please email our advocacy inbox. We will review the case and then assign it to one of the peer specialists. And I could put that in the chat again.
Okay, thank you. Does the Department of Advocacy also address political and budget areas of concern within state government, or is that outside your purview?
So that's outside the purview of my position. Willow, is there anything that you wanted to add with that?
No, I think you're right. The Office of Advocacy is set up at this time to really be responsive to constituency issues and interface with both of the Ombuds programs that Lisa outlined. But I wanted to add to the question about the place for families, right? Because I am a family member of someone with a disability. Lisa talked about being the family member of someone with a disability. We have all kinds of stakeholder groups and forums and meetings with families all over the state. I think a number of you know that I've been engaging in family commissioner conversations with different groups of families in person in different parts of the state as well. And so in terms of families having a seat at the table, it is sort of baked into everything that we do. We have family members in our formal advisory bodies, all of our committees, subcommittees, boards of visitors, etc. So I just wanted to make sure that I added that as well, because it is absolutely a priority that we hear from families and that we understand how our service system is experienced by families.
Well, absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. And Flor, what is available for people for whom English is not their first language? How do they reach out to you? What do they do?
That's a very good question. So when you call our helpline, Mary, you'll get asked whether you want to stay in the whether you want to stay in the English track, or if you speak Spanish, or I have someone that speaks other languages like Cantonese. And so, but if we don't have the language that, the person calls us for, then we'll definitely work with a translator. And so we have 4 staff members that speak Spanish, and that one person that speaks Korean, Chinese, Cantonese. And so, and then we'll, accommodate any other languages.
And do you think there are stakeholders who are reluctant to get in touch with you because they fear consequences or repercussions?
We've had a couple calls where the people express concerns about, not necessarily from OPWDD, but I think slowing things down through the CCO. And we explain to people, educate people that it's okay to advocate for their loved ones or for themselves if it's a self-advocate. And we anonymize the case and provide information that they can use to advocate for themselves.
And then another question is, in the eligibility world,
Yeah.
which often involves clinics, which are not under OPWDD yet are essential to getting the evals you need. What's the relationship there? Is that one of the ones you refer out? I mean, what can
Well,
be done to help
I will
people with that?
say actually that we actually give out, OPWDD has a list online that is pretty good of assessments, but it depends on someone's age, Mary. So if someone is school age, actually they usually have access to these evals already. But if not, we'll work with them to get a good referral. I think Rachel shared recently with the team that we found a good connect in the city that was taking referrals, and it was really cool for us because we want to make sure people have access to these evaluations quickly, right? That we don't want them on long list. So the list on OPWDD's website has worked for us. Actually, I've actually given positive feedback to Lisa about that. I'm like, it's really good. We share, we actually share it, and if not, remember, CSS has other health insurance type Ombuds programs, so we know how to navigate that area and work with their insurance to try to get access to an evaluation.
So you are a good place to reach out to if people are having that
Yeah,
particular
it's
issue.
part of our work. Yes, part of
Okay.
the work, the service that we provide.
Okay. And do you negotiate conflicts between service recipients and either their providers or their FIs or their, that there can be a lot of, unfortunately, hostility. How do you manage that?
We advocate on people's behalf, right? And so I guess, we don't represent anyone legally, right?
Right.
And not all my staff are attorneys. I am one of the few. But we make sure that one of the things that we like to do is model the things that we want them to do. So for example, if someone has someone in a certified setting and they don't know who to reach if they have questions or they feel that they are not being heard, one of the things that I tell my staff is like, then connect with a provider, right? And try to connect them, because building that relationship is critical for this to work, right, successfully. And we've had good experiences with that.
So you did mention that you have track it in terms of you have data that you understand there are CCOs that are, let's say, come up more often than others. And is that something that you share with the commissioner? Because, well, CC, how to keep an eye on ones that are like functioning less well than others?
We do share that data with OPWDD and the commission.
Okay. And for the commissioner, do you share the data with the governor or with the legislature? Do you think you should? And is it available publicly to us?
Yeah, so this is what I tried to address before. So the data that we have so far, with the Ombuds being relatively new and having to do some work in terms of the use of certain terms and definitions, right? The first couple of reports we had to work through to understand what they were saying. We've really collaboratively refined that process. So at the end of the calendar year, we'll have 1 year of reporting that I think will look pretty useful with words that we all recognize, and those categories that Flor talked about earlier. And that once we have that final sort of 1 year report, then we will share that out publicly on our website so that you all have access to it, as well as share it back with the legislature and the governor. This was a program that really was a culmination. It was supported both by the governor and the legislature, and I think that we owe some reporting back to them about what it is doing to help people. So that absolutely will be shared out.
And another thing that came up is the difference in reaction, or the difference in how DDROs deal with information and requests. And are you able through these programs to get a sense of like where the unevenness, for lack of a better word, is, so that some people get one answer and somebody else in a different place gets a different answer?
Is
And
that to me?
well, whoever can answer that. And the same with FIs, that there's a lot of unevenness. Can you identify those, I don't hesitate, I don't want to say bad actors, but not great help for the people that they're responsible for?
we have been tracking. We're so new, Mary. We're very
Right,
new.
I understand.
Still very early.
I may
But
be
we are tracking, and we're tracking because we want to see trends that we can report back to the commissioner, so that, you know, she has all the information necessary to see what's happening out there. But also we're helping people where there could be, I don't want to say bad actors would not be the word that I would.
No, and I apologize for my lack of vocabulary.
Inconsistencies in process. And that's where, like, you know, it happens in sort of like in different areas, like in health insurance and health plans, it happens.
Right.
There's inconsistencies, and I think that's where we come in. The FI example, right? That's in, I don't remember the region actually, but so I don't want to call out a region and be wrong. But in that specific, for that specific FI, we wanted to make sure that they were not being inconsistent, right? As opposed to another FI that was allowing someone to explore their independence if that's what they want to try. Who are you to tell someone that, you know, the DDRO has a role to play there? And of course, you know, you're talking about DDROs specifically, but where there are inconsistencies, we are coming in to fill in those gaps and help someone and hold their hands so that they have a good chance, or a chance that we feel comfortable with. Not everybody's eligible, right? And so we also have those difficult conversations with parents, and we say, maybe explore this, right? But for those that we think should have a good chance, we stay with them. We stay with them, and we won't let them go until we get what we think is a good, you know, a fair chance at the process.
Great.
Hope that
Thank you.
answers it a little bit.
And this is really for the commissioner, which is getting the information you get from both Lisa and from Flor. Has anything been raised that you feel could be mitigated by changes in any ADMs or policies within OPWDD? I heard a slight reference to that before. I just want to get a little more clarity.
Sure. I mean, I think what it does more than anything is show us where there's a need for some refinement, potentially of ADMs, potentially of our regulations, and really where there's a need for more education and for our communication to be more easily understood, and for our website to have additional resources that we might not have thought of, but that is very obvious to family members and self-advocates as they're looking for those resources. And some of those themes that when I talk to Lisa and I talk to Flor are exactly the same. Some of the issues that you highlighted at the beginning of the meeting, Mary, around self-direction and housing, and, you know, federal concerns, those are all the same things that we're hearing. Those themes were not new to me. They're not new to Lisa, and they're not new to Flor. So in the positive, right, all of those 800 cases that Flor referenced and all of the cases that Lisa and her team are managing, we see consistently some of the same themes coming out of both of those. And so that absolutely will help guide me in the strategic planning of the agency, as well as help identify some real pain points where we need to look at those rules and think about whether or not we're articulating them well, or whether or not they need to just be scrapped and start over. I know without being too specific, right, within the world of self-direction, I think that drives a lot of Flor's business and the rules around self-direction and navigating that, and it has been really helpful. That feedback is going to be really helpful as we look to change some of those processes.
And do you have any, does the Department of Advocacy, or all of you in general, have interface with any other state agencies in order to make the lives of people with IDD better? Or that's not going to happen?
Maybe if I may, well, Medicaid is very important for someone to have waiver. So
Yes.
You can imagine that we are like, trying to make sure that, oh my God, they're about to lose their Medicaid. And so we naturally have to help with that. And the good thing is that we have experience doing that, right? Because CSS runs the largest FEABD network. So we try to, like, you know, use that expertise to try to help people. And OTWDD, the Office of Temporary Disability Assistance. I hope I got that right. Naturally,
say that again for us, please.
OPWDD. Can one of my teams like put their website in? Did I get that? Office of yeah, I
Yeah,
hope I
temporary and disability assistance,
Thank you,
OTD.
Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. We have to deal with OPWDD, which is another agency that, sort of like deals with the fair hearings and whether or not aid to continue will be granted, et cetera.
Right.
And
And
then I could, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I mean, I don't know that it's exactly what you're asking, but I certainly interface with other state agencies every day. I talk to commissioners of the Department of Health, Children and Family Services, Temporary Disability Assistance, Office of Mental Health. We're doing a ton of collaborative work with the Office of Mental Health in terms of creating projects for duly diagnosed children and adults in the system. So a lot of work between state agencies and my office.
Oh, that's very good to hear.
Perfect. And then, Mary, I just wanted to add within the Office of Advocacy, of course, most of our work is within OPWDD, but since I've been on board since February, we have connected with many state agencies. We work with the Chief Disability Office, and our advocates have done many presentations with other state agencies. Like Christopher mentioned earlier, even, New York State Library had asked our advocates to do a presentation on how they can make libraries more accessible and inclusive for people with disabilities. Department of Health reached out to collaborate on a project, and we're currently looking at collaborating with Office of Mental Health's peer specialist unit as well. And then we're also working with the Office of Faith. So definitely that state cross-agency collaboration happens. And we love it.
What is the relationship between you guys and a Chief Disability Officer, since it has a similar sound, but it seems to have a different role? Like what's going on there?
Kim Hill is the governor's chief disability director and works in the governor's office, has a team of her own. So she's responsible for overseeing things like ADA implementation throughout the state, the Olmstead plan for the state, the most integrated settings council, so disabilities in totality. She works very closely with the Commission for the Blind. She works very closely with us, with OMH. She's responsible for implementing the governor's employment first for people with disabilities. So we collaborate with her office all the time. She has, in some ways, a much bigger breadth of work, and in some ways, sort of a much smaller group of initiatives.
Well, this is a little bit of an editorial on my part, but I believe that you guys at OPWDD bring a lot of information about a population she may be less familiar with and should know more about. Editorial. It's not NYC Fair speaking.
Oh, that's okay. She has been a tremendous partner and is always looking to us to learn about this system and to collaborate with us. Absolutely.
Oh, that's great to hear. And I had one last. Do you have any idea at all about what the impact of the things coming up will be, and what advocacy we as family advocates and self-advocates can do to protect OPWDD?
So Mary, you're talking about the federal administration and the HR one, I assume. Yeah.
Yes, because we know it's all coming. It's hanging over our heads.
Yeah, absolutely. It's frightening. It keeps me up at night, right? We know that New York is set to lose $14 billion in Medicaid funding, entirely in the health and hospital system. So not direct cuts to IDD services, but people with developmental disabilities rely on Medicaid providers to receive all of their health and dental and hospital services, right? So that cut will absolutely be felt in our service system. There's also a significant cut to SNAP benefits. And who knows what else, right? We're changing eligibility authorization criteria. The disability community is carved out of a lot of those requirements, which is great news for our service system, but we absolutely will feel the impact of a $14 billion loss of funding in New York State. So that is something we're all bracing for, thinking through where we could find efficiencies and savings without cutting any services and without anyone losing jobs, right? This governor and this agency are absolutely focused on finding solutions that don't involve the loss of services and the loss of jobs. So as a state, between the governor, the division of budget, and the legislature, we will have to figure it out, and we will keep, you know, everyone at the table and informed. I don't know how, I can't tell you everything is going to be okay, because it's an alarming time.
Yes, it is. Like I said, I just want to remind you that we are advocates as well, and we can be fierce and we can say things you can't say as family members and self-advocates. And
Understood.
I just want to see if there's a question in the chat that I should be asking you. Oh, Rachel put in CSIDD.
Yeah, there's, I guess, a lot of use of acronyms, so
Yeah,
I'm trying to
lots.
make it accessible. And we also have a glossary, so if there's anything that you think we should add to that glossary, definitely let us know.
How does IDDO work with people who are dual diagnosed and need both mental health and IDD supports?
We work closely with our sister Ombuds program to try to make sure that the individual's needs are being met. That's CHAMP. They also have a website.
And just say again, if you would, stands for
Community Health Access to Addiction and Mental Health Project. It's a mouthful for sure.
Yeah. So you get in contact with both.
Yeah, we're in the same
individuals.
office. I used to be the interim supervising attorney for this project, and also it's associate supervising attorney. So I led this project for a while, so I'm familiar. So sometimes examples are people trying to get access to ABA, for example, right? That falls within the scope of CHAMP, or needing psychiatric help or something of that sort. And so we work together to make sure that those are health insurance issues usually, right? Having access to that. And so CHAMP is better equipped to handle that part of, the issue. But we work together to make sure that the individual's needs are met.
I know you showed us a chart, and I'm afraid that I didn't imprint on my brain the bulk of the issues that people come to you with. Do they have to do with mental health and OPWDD services together? Do they tend to be younger children, older people? Like, how far do you break out the data?
I break it further than that, but I don't have it next to me. But the
You don't have to. I just want to know what you
the
cover.
bulk of the need is access to care. So people needing already enrolled, having issues accessing OPWDD supports and services. And so we help with that. And the next one is eligibility. Close next. So 36% is access to care, 30% is eligibility. So people trying to get initial OPWDD eligibility or the waiver, right? So meeting that reasonable indication of need. I think I don't think we have time, but I could look the breakdown. I think the majority of our folks, I want to say under 21. But don't quote me, because I don't want,
I was gonna say,
No
we have a good amount of self-advocates and participants who contact us who are over the age of 21. So I would say, in terms of people contacting us themselves, like they're the service recipient, or they're the self-advocate, I would say most folks are, adults, or maybe even on the older end of the age range that we get. And then I think for children, we get a lot of parents of young children who maybe are seeking services for the very first time, and they're just overwhelmed and don't know where to start. So but yeah, like Flor said, I mean, we have to, we don't have all the data in front of us, but that's been, from what I've looked at in our reporting, that's what it seems to.
Do you get requests to also intervene with the DOE for families who feel that their children are not being served properly in schools, or that goes out to a different group?
That it's out of scope, so that would go out, right? It's not a service under OPWDD, and so that goes out. That becomes a referral to either include NYC, which I really like. It's one of our outreach partners, and I think they have really good resources and really care about the work, or NELP, or, you know, there are lots of great agencies in the state. And so we, depending on where they are, we, you know, we connect them to someone that can help them with that issue specifically, because it's outside of scope for us.
Now, this is a question that may not have an answer here, but do you hear about people who are having trouble with the front door videos since there's no person to ask a question of? Or do people just give up? Because that's the kind of stuff we sometimes hear about.
I think people just don't know exactly what to do next.
Yeah.
Like that's, I think, the thing. Oh, sorry, Flor.
No,
didn't
it's
mean to-
okay. Yeah, I think things changed with that recently, right? Before you used
Yeah.
well, not recently, last year. Yeah, 2024, I think, around February or something. Yeah, I think it's sometimes people are confused about what's the next step or what do they do first, right? And it's part of our role to sort of like lead them in the right direction.
Yes, like, do they get a care manager first? Do they go to the front door first? Do they need a care manager to do the front door? What if they have a question about the front door? We get questions like that we're not, as NYC Fair, equipped to answer, but we hope that there's somebody who's hears that and is trying to mitigate
Here we
that.
are. We send them to us.
Okay.
We'll gladly help them.
Believe you me, your phone is going to ring off the
boy.
hook.
I think that's a great flag
Yeah.
for us, right? That there's a
Mhm.
gap there, that we thought we created these great videos that are accessible to everyone and they're in languages that anybody could need. They replace needing to come in person for a forum that people were complaining about having to do. And so we solved sort of one problem and didn't realize that that wasn't necessarily directly linking people to the next step. So every time I meet with a group of advocates, I learn something else about what we do or don't do that helps me go back and bring a solution. So I'm glad that you raised it.
Yeah, that is something I really do think needs to be looked at, because it's usually very young families, young children, and overwhelmed with their life in general and adjusting to have a child with disabilities, and sometimes just give up, and it's really sad. So, and if there's anything you could do to wave a magic wand and recreate a complete early intervention system, we would all be very happy. But I do think that's outside your scope, sadly. Then, okay, let me see. I have to take a look again at the questions. I don't want to leave anyone out. Oh, what are the steps for someone to learn how to be a self-advocate? Where can they learn how to do that? Lisa, I guess that's your turf.
Yeah, that's an absolutely great question. As I mentioned before, we love people who want to enhance their self-advocacy skills. I think it's great. I think, you know, like I said, advocacy, effective advocacy, our peer specialists are trained and they're equipped to meet with folks and help them enhance their self-advocacy skills. So I would say, you know, certainly reach out to us and a peer specialist would love to connect with you. And again, I'll respond and put our email in there.
Yes, please do.
Okay.
And, you know, whatever way you can make it easy for people to reach you is the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and not a lot on press 1 for, press 7 if you have this kind of a problem, press 8 if you have that kind of thing, because that's very discouraging. That's
Yeah,
again,
no, we just have definitely understand that frustration. We just have our advocacy inbox as our most effective way, and I monitor that inbox currently. We'll review it, and then an advocate will get assigned, and they are expected to reach out within 5 business days.
Right. And I just want to read out loud something to add to what I was talking to you about, Willow, which is that, where to go? The reason why the videos don't work as expected is because they're being used to replace contact with someone from OPWDD and people. It doesn't complement it. And there's no way you can watch one of those videos and not have a lot of questions and be a little intimidated by the process. It is intimidating. And then there's some other people who say, oh, there are OPWDD, I believe, everybody has a Facebook page. Am I correct? That sometimes, you can write to. We do. NYC Fair has a Facebook page, and we welcome questions and we welcome information. We're going to take a lot of the information you gave us tonight about your programs and put it on our Facebook page. So, and we will refer people to that because not everyone could come tonight, and there's a lot of information to absorb. So I appreciate it very much that you take the time to come here and explain and listen. And if there's anything I didn't get to that you feel like should be said, speak up now or forever hold your peace. Anybody? Because I saw BJ had his hand up earlier, but I wasn't sure. It's hard to keep track of all the people.
I think we can let BJ close us out if he has something to add. But just thanks for bringing us together, Mary, and for hosting not just all of us, but for this topic in general. It's what created the disability justice movement in the first place, right? Everything came from advocates, self-advocates, and family advocates, and it remains just as important now. So I appreciate you bringing us all together.
Absolutely. And I want to say once again, before we hear from BJ, that we know we have a tremendous amount of advocacy ahead of us to face the changes that are becoming. SNAP in particular, because so many DSPs, people in residences, people in certified housing, and people at home get SNAP benefits. And that's going to that's going to be a real hit. So we appreciate any information you have about where to aim our ire and aggravation, we will do. And BJ, just have to unmute BJ.
Yes, there's one thing I want to say because I noticed some things in the comment that people think advocacy moves slowly. I'm not going to lie. 21 years in, it does, but meetings like this help move the advocacy along. So I know it takes forever and I know it's slow because Willow knows we've had talks between us about how slow it goes. Can we move a little faster? I'm saying that to Willow all the time when we have our private conversations. So just be patient and know that Willow's here, the Office of Advocacy is here, IDDO, and if you're patient and keep speaking up and keep advocating, the system will move. The system will move if we all speak up. So please remember that. It's not meant to move fast because if it moves fast, we might miss something important with the breakneck speed. I know a lot of us want the system to move at. If we're going to move, we want to move slow and efficiently so everybody gets what they need. And that's what I'm here for. That's why I'm glad to be a peer specialist too. And that's why I'm glad for opportunities like this to speak to you all, because we're all in the same boat trying to do the same things. Some of us might have different ways of doing it, like mine, some of you know, is being very straightforward. I don't beat around the bush. I'm very straight to the point with things that I want to change with the system. And yes, I'll keep saying it until somebody listens, because that's my job.
Thank you, BJ. And thank you
You're
all
welcome.
for coming.
Anytime.
Oh, and Christopher, you want to say something as well? Yes?
You may just need a minute to unmute. There we go.
Yeah, there he goes.
Thank you. I just want to add to BJ, what BJ said, and just share that this has been great getting to connect with all of you. And I am here and available to support you folks. Anything I don't know, I will find out or find somebody who does. And I just want to encourage you all with some words. Things may not always seem easy or like there is hope at the end of the tunnel, but through advocacy and amplifying your voice, speaking up, and doing all the work that you all are doing and have been doing on this town hall, we can and will make changes and get closer to where we all want to be. So I encourage you all to keep being strong advocates and not be afraid to reach out to OPWDD and the Office of Peer Supports, and just stay strong, you all.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, all of
Thank
our
you.
panelists. Thank you to the Commissioner, to the Director of Advocacy, and to the Ombuds program, Willow, Lisa, Flor, Rachel, Christopher, and BJ. You are the people who make this clear for the rest of us, and I appreciate it very much. And with that, I'm going to say good night, and thank you for coming, and come to our next one and stay attached. And we will send the information that we collect in the chat out to everyone with all of those acronyms and contact information for those places. Thank you.